we've all stayed in those, right?
Yeah.
Like the ones that you really don't want to stay into.
We had the one. My favorite one was. We're live now. What's up, everybody? My favorite one was the one we stayed at in Kentucky Lake, and I can't remember what the name of that place was. You remember the name of it?
Was it Fin and Feather?
It might have been Fin and Feather.
It was down by like
Ken Lake
area.
Yeah, and we walked in. We're both 6'2",
6'3",
yeah. So we walk in there, and we had to duck a couple times. They had dropped, the floors were offset down, and the roof dropped down, or the ceiling dropped down. I think the ceiling
in the
was
main part of the house, you couldn't stretch. Like I could not. In the morning when I got up, I had to sit on the edge of the bed and do what I just did. Because if I put my hands up in the air, I kid you not, we were 3-4 inches.
It was made
from hitting
for trolls or something.
I think everybody was just shorter in the 70s.
Coal miners, maybe.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with short people.
You get that angle.
I'm 6'2" also.
Bringing in rods though, that was the. Where do you put your rods at? Remember
that? There was a little
7.5 foot rod.
There was a back.
That's right.
Patio area, a screen door, a storm door in the back, and when you laid your rods down, you literally had them like that. I mean, you couldn't. There was no putting them up in the air, laying them against the wall. It was laying them half sideways on the wall. So.
Yeah, that's why you got to have a couple of 2-piece rods for places like that.
Absolutely,
a little travel rod.
See that you should our fly rods are 4 pieces. I mean, so you fish enough BFLs. What was the craziest thing that a co-angler brought?
A dog or something.
Honestly, man, I can't recall anything. Like equipment wise, I had a dude try to pay me with Xanax one time. That was. I noticed he like backed me in and parked, and he came running down to the boat, and he sounded like a big dang rattle trap coming down the. I said, bro, you got a pocket full of lipless crankbaits or something? He's like, no, dude, I got a bad back, man. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, he's like, bro, I don't have any cash, man, but I got Valium and I got Oxys. And I was kind of scared to say no, so I just said sure, and he handed them to me, and when he turned around, I just threw them in the lake.
Yeah, that's actually one of the oldest tricks in the book for a co-angler. If they're a jig fisherman, they give their boater like some Xanax, and then they really slow down. They can soak the jig or shaky head. Yeah.
Well, see, he screwed up.
Co-angler tip.
He gave it to him at the end.
Yeah, I know. He's a rookie. Obviously, he's just getting into tournament fishing.
Jeez.
I tell you, did I tell this? Have I ever told the story? So when I was down in Florida on our private lakes down there, thank you, Chris Flay. I see he's congratulating me, and Darius also. Thank you. So this guy calls me and tells me that he's a vetted, like world-class fly fisherman, and he sends me like this resume, and he wants to fly fish on our lakes, which was fine. And he came and he was really good, but he didn't catch very many. And fast forward like a year and a half, and he's co-angling at Potomac River last year in the Toyota with his fly rod.
Really?
Yeah.
So what's the rod length requirement?
I think it's gone. I think it's 8 now.
Okay.
Maybe it always has been, but he actually caught one the first day, and he didn't know any of the procedure. Like they had to show him how to go through the line and walk on stage, but I thought that was pretty funny.
Did he have any spinning or bait casting tackle? Just fly rod?
Just a fly rod, and we were smashing them on a jerk bait, and there had been a cold front come through. Only time I'd ever seen this. All those Mayan cichlid, those aquarium, they're like an exotic aquarium fish that have been introduced in Florida, like a kind of a type of Oscar. They were dying because it had gotten so cold, so they were on the top fluttering, and these things are big, and like 500 yards across the lake, that big bass were blasting them. So that was the only day I ever saw it, and I just kicked the trolling motor on high, and I'm going, and I'm going, and I'm going. And there's like a bar between me and the fish. I mean, I could have reached him with a big spook, pretty soon. And I was like, fire in there now. And he's like, I can't reach him. Get me closer. And I'm like, I can't, man. It's dry land. And then they went down. And so I don't know. We missed a golden opportunity. But his name was Kieran Mooney. Interesting fact.
Now, did he fish with you with the fly rod?
He fished with me in Florida with a fly rod, and then he got in the Toyota Series. I didn't draw him.
Okay.
But everybody was talking about it because they had pictures of him on MLF of some dude with a fly rod. And I was like, went and looked at the pictures, and sure enough, dude, it was Kieran. So it's pretty
that was actually where I was going to go with that, was if you ever had anybody bring a fly rod. But that would be.
We talked about bringing one rod, just bringing fishing a BFL out of the back of the boat with just a shaky head.
Yeah.
Just, to see how
just never had the balls to do it. Like,
you catch a lot of, you probably catch a lot of checks, dude.
Right.
I've always said the scariest co-angler to me is the dude that brings like a Ziploc bag and one rod, because he's going to keep it in the water all day.
Right.
Yeah.
I love, no offense to any of my co-angler buddies out there, I would never intentionally hinder you, but if you hinder yourself, I can't do anything about it. So when they got 27 rods and 48 pounds of tackle, I'm like, sweet, because they're going to be back there untangle and jump most of the day.
There's a lot of truth in that.
Well, I learned that early on. Like, I first started with like 7 or 8 was like the max that I would take.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got down to like, how can I get this to 4? How can I get it to 3? Like, how can I get it to the least amount possible? But when you fish Kentucky Lake, going down there, even the night before, not pre-fishing, not knowing who the heck you're going to draw, you could go down there in September and you could draw BA, and you're running all the way on the south end, and you're probably going to do one thing all day, and your wrist is going to hurt the next day, right? Or you could get some guy that goes and flips over on Barkley somewhere all day.
Right.
You never know what you're going to get. So you always bring everything. And then, it was always combo rods. You got to have something that could do this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
But like you said, bring a shaky head, bring a drop shot. Then probably, depending on the time of the year, you're going to have one specialty rod, whether it's a cranking rod or or top water rod or something like that. So,
and you typically, when you bring, let's say you bring 7 rods, most of the time, within the first hour, you probably are going to be down to like 3 rods or 4 rods.
Yeah.
Once you figure out what kind of the game plan for the day. A lot of times you're only fishing 2 or 3 rods, and those other ones are just sitting there. So, but sometimes you don't know. Sometimes it's nice to have that extra rod. You may pick it up and only make a handful of casts with it throughout the day. And, it could be the one that gets you a bite. You just never know.
Oh, I get it, man. And I've never been one. I should have been one. It would have definitely flattened my learning curve, but I was like determined I was going to learn all this crap on my own. And, but like, I don't know how you do it, man. Like adjust to different guys. And I know I've heard the stories of some real winners guys draw. And, what would scare me is, like, I always said, if I ever did co-angle and the dude had a bullet, I wouldn't fish with him, because them dudes have that for one reason.
Yeah.
That's to run it as fast as it'll go, and that's usually pretty fast.
I've been in one.
And a bullet, did they scare you?
No, he had like a buddy bow hook 2 weeks, 3 weeks prior.
Nice.
And he was scared.
Oh, I got you.
It was 65, 70 mile an hour was the top that we hit all day, which is fine. Like, I went faster than that in my first BFL in a bass cat. We ran 85 the entire way.
Yeah.
And he still said he still had more to go in it. I mean, and that was flying.
I've been in 2 bullets. The first one was in a Toyota Series, and that boat was fast. It was slow out of the hole, but once the nose went down, it just took off. We were running mid-80s, but he ran respectfully. The water was kind of flat. And then the second guy that I drew was Puggy D. Berry down there, Kentucky Lake, and he had a newer one. The the older bullet, the one that was really fast, or well, they're both really fast, but the guy that was running really fast, it was set up really strange. Like the storage and stuff behind the seat kind of flipped up and there were storage compartments back there. It was just, everything was like small, but the newer bullet was quite a bit nicer. I mean, they made a lot of improvements. I mean,
Yeah.
this was probably like a 2021 maybe.
Yeah.
And we just putted around that thing. I don't think we ever got above 60 miles an hour. So it wasn't scary by any
Well,
means.
heck, them old Tritons ran hard and fast, didn't they?
Yeah, man. And that's like, man, I've always been really like nervous and cautious of, I think I've probably said every podcast I ever get on, it comes up. I'm scared of the water. Like, I don't want to get in the water. I don't like the water. I love snakes. You know that. I love, like, I'm not scared of anything that lives in the water, but I don't like to be in the water. So I've always like said, if I ever get thrown out of a boat or have a boat wreck, I'll never get in a boat. So I've always been really cautious. But at the same time, you know, if the conditions are right and I feel like it's safe, I'll run for everything I had. So in 2014, when Triton came out with the TRX, they built them that they were like 700 pounds too light. They ended up cracking underneath the keel, and they built everybody a new one. But they would run like 79, 80 loaded. And I'd run from Little River all the way around past Paris in an ABA.
That's a haul.
And we were coming back, and I even remember thinking, like, I was like, man, this is like so weird for it to be this calm on Kentucky Lake. But you know, I'm scanning around looking for, you know, any barges or anything, and I remember seeing like this big group of like, you know, cabin cruisers all set up next to each other out there, and I was like, man, I'm glad those, you know, they're anchored up and not running. I turned back around and looked at my GPS. It said 79.6. I looked up and there's like a 7-foot roller coming. And we went, pew, boom. And then it was just a series of pew, boom, pew. And my co-angler ended up becoming a good buddy of mine. He, like, when we hit the first time, he shot over and his legs were in my lap and his torso was like behind my seat. But every time we hit, he just flopped like he was limp, and I was afraid he had hit his head. And it scared me really bad, man, that I thought I'd killed him, you know, or hurt him really bad. And when we finally came to a stop, which seemed like it took an eternity, he popped up and he had one of those save faces on, and it was like soaking wet. I don't know if his head went in the water or what. And he popped it off, and I was like, dude, are you okay? And he was like, that's fishing. And it isn't. It isn't fishing at all, because if it was, I wouldn't be out here.
Right.
So for the rest of that year, man, I drove like 50 miles an hour. And I even had a dude later on be like, man, why do you drive like a 95-year-old man? And I said, because I almost killed one of you suckers not too long ago, dude. But and up here on the St. Lawrence, man, there's, you know, these huge ships, like these 200-300 foot long ships, and their wake is really subtle. Like you can't see it from a distance. It's because they're just big rollers. But every time you pass one, you know it's coming, and sometimes it's like 4 or 5 miles past them.
Really?
So as soon as I see the ship, man, I trim down and I'm running like 50. And I know my co's are probably like, what's he doing? But it's coming. It's always coming.
So that saved face saved his face.
It did save his face.
Wow. Well, good for him.
He ended up buying that boat for me too, man.
Really? He said if it can survive that,
if it can fly.
Yeah. I stopped in the canal again, man. I said, dude, I just gotta get my composure, man. Like, I mean, obviously I don't want to kill myself in a boat, but I'd way rather it be me than him. I just don't, you know, his life is in my hands, and I don't feel like it should. He should have to worry about making it back safe that day. But.
Well, you know, that's the fear of being. That was always my fear, and still, even if I go co-angle today, that's still my fear is drawing some idiot. Let's call them what they are, an idiot that just wants to run.
Yeah, and you got
Hey,
about a 75% chance of doing that.
I know, and,
So,
I've been fortunate. I've gotten lucky the 4 or 5 years that I did it every summer. I got a couple of them that were a little bit, wired a little bit different.
mhm.
But usually when you tell them like, "Hey, I had back surgery a couple years ago," they kind of, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm not going to take it that hard today." But, cool, I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
I had a back surgery guy Saturday, man. He broke his back in a boat a boater doing something stupid, but
Really,
yeah. But I like I say, I take it easy. I'm not in a big hurry at this point in my life, man. I usually don't have a. I usually having time to fish efficiently means more to me than getting to a hole. Like it's been a long time since I had a hole I needed to race somebody to, man. I wish I still had that.
Mhm.
Everything gets found nowadays, so you just have to figure out a better way to catch them. So
well,
as long as I get it sometime during the day, I'm not worried about being the first one there.
you say that like that run down there. Say you get there an extra 4 minutes before the other guy does. It's going to take you another 10 minutes to come down off that high because I mean you're jacked up when you're running like that. You're super hyper focused on everything. You should be at least. I hope to God you are. Uh,
Yes, yes,
and that takes a toll on you too. If you're running that hard and that fast, I mean you got to mentally get back into the game.
right.
So
I don't know. I'm sure people think I'm a nut. It's probably why I finally just now winning one of these things because, like day 2 of the Bassmaster Open a couple weeks ago, we come out of Waddington, and as soon as we get to we run like 5 miles, and we run into a big old cloud of a big old freaking rainstorm, and I just like pull over out in the middle of the river so nobody runs me over, and I'm like, hang on, dude, I got to get my rain suit on. And I said, you ever see anybody in contention to win a Bass Open and they wait to put their rain suit on for like first thing in the morning? Like I don't know. I don't get real worked up about it, man.
I mean,
I finally learned if you're supposed to win, you can't blow it, and if you're not, you can't do anything to make it happen.
yep,
So
yep. That's a good way to live life too. I think it's gonna.
if it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
It
If
kind of
it's
is.
not,
I mean, don't be a slacker by any means, but just do your
right,
thing and
yeah,
don't
man,
don't push it too hard. I mean, there's so many times where I'm coming upon a wreck that just happened, and maybe I walked out of my house that morning and I forgot something and I went back in the
right,
house and it put me literally 45 seconds late,
yeah,
and that wreck happened a minute before that.
yeah,
That's happened. If you start thinking about that stuff, there's a reason why there was a delay. There was a reason
yeah.
why
and
something
you
stuttered.
may have been pissed when you left the house too.
Yeah.
Like you got to the end of the driveway or into the subdivision, you're like, gosh dang it. Turn back around and head back to the house, and all of a sudden you get there and you got your kids in the car and there was a big wreck.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah. Or
Yeah, like
somebody cuts you off and it makes you get behind a truck or you're on the interstate. You want to be going 78 and you're stuck at 69 or something for 4 miles. And then up ahead, there's some kind of something that's going on. Now, I don't know if you'd have been in it, but you'd have been closer to being in it,
right.
right.
you know?
Puts it
So,
all into perspective.
yeah.
You know,
I got to give a shout out to Dave real quick. I fished Egypt yesterday and Dave was out there, Dave and his son, Devin. And it was fun. So it was a tough day for me. So I decided to get away from the area that I was in and just run down to the other end of the lake. I'm running down the lake and I look over in this little cove, this little short cove, and I see the water's frothing. They're schooling over there.
Oh,
So I'm like, oh, that looks interesting. I'm just going to kind of ease over there and have a few casts and check that out. So I shut the boat down and kind of idled over there. I caught a couple on jerk bait, and then Dave called, and I had some stuff that I was going to donate to the high school fishing team. So he comes and finds me, and he jumps in right beside me, and he doesn't have live scope. So they'd come up, you cast a spook or something and catch one, and then they go down. And I was panning around with my forward facing sonar, and I'd say they're over there, and Devin would make a cast over there, and he'd catch one. It was kind of cool, kind of coaching them on where the fish were at underneath the water since they didn't have that technology. And we sat rowboat to rowboat for the most part for, I don't know, an hour or so, and just picking a few off here and there. But it was fun. It's fun to kind of fish like that. Normally we're trying to kind of competitive, trying to get away from people, but it's cool to have a school and they can pop up anywhere. So there really is no advantage, I mean, it was just fun to sit there with somebody and shoot the breeze and make a few casts and have them blow up.
Steve
Yeah,
had a
sometimes people take it too serious, man.
Agree.
I mean, we're all out here for fun for the most part, right?
Right.
I don't do it for a living because I'd be broke.
Yeah.
Be eating water
Well,
and bread sandwiches.
I took it so serious the first several years. About 2016, man, I was done, and actually sold a bunch of my tackle. I lost a bunch of fish that year, man. Probably over $100,000 worth of fish jumped off my string that year, and I said, dude, it's not fun anymore. And actually came out your way that fall for the wild card at Lake of the Ozarks, and I was like, I made a deal with myself. I was like, if I win this tournament, I'll keep fishing, and if I don't, I'm done. And I was tied for first after day one. Second morning, within the first hour, I lost like a 3, a 5, and won about 8.
Oh,
And I was like, that's it, man. I can't do it anymore. But I still made the All American, and I was like, well, I don't want to get a job and then be like, hey, I need 3 weeks off to go pre-practice and fish the All American. So I was like, I'll keep doing it till the All American's over. Long story short, I got to looking at some old pics, man, from back when I first started fishing Kentucky Lake, and I'd have those big old giant checkered shorts on, and just like a solid white T-shirt, man, with freaking blood stains all over it and fish poo. And I'd be just grinning, man, like so happy. And I was like, dude, you used to have fun doing it. And then I changed my approach after that, man. Like I made it fun again.
yeah.
It's amazing what mindset does to you.
Yeah.
Whether it's fishing, whether it's life in general. I mean, just mindset goes a long way.
Yeah. I like saying this. I tell this, like, no way am I comparing myself to Rick Clunn, obviously. But I heard Rick Clunn say a long time ago that he was at a point in his career where he didn't want to fish like he had to anymore. He wanted to fish like he wanted to. And I never really understood what that meant. And I do now. Like, there's sometimes when I know, like this past spring at Del Hollow, for instance, I knew it was going to get one scoping. I knew it, but I didn't want to do that. So I kind of like looked at it as a challenge. I was like, I want to see how well I can do against the scopers doing what I want to do. And it wasn't very good. I didn't do very good at all. But I did it last year and it worked out one time.
Yeah.
Of course, needed a 10-pounder to make it work, but
How do you catch a 10-pounder on
almost
Del Hollow?
Do what?
How do you catch a 10-pounder on Del Hollow?
Throwing a chatterbait at the bank because you don't know what else to do.
Jesus. What was that, 913 or 9 something?
910.
910. God, that's a beast.
Yeah, I mean, it was luck. It was a fluke, but
No, you're in the right area. You gotta be in the right area.
I mean, he was hanging out with a school of 2-pounders, just like where all them other 910s hang out. Probably they're feeding on him,
Probably with a big old mouth like that.
I know he ate that old silver shad, Clearwater shad chatterbait up.
Yeah.
I got my roommate over here. That's his favorite color. So
Yeah.
I throw about 40
Secret's out.
different colors of chatterbait, but every time I win something on one, I always tell them it was his color. So.
Blow it up.
Well, so I guess that's the deal. When you find that school of 1.5 to 2.5 pounders, you got to stay there because there's a 10 there feeding on them.
Absolutely.
So
everybody, all my competitors, if you catch some 2-pounders, don't leave.
Don't leave.
Right.
You just got to weed through them.
Weed through them.
9-pin popper. What do you know about that one?
Who?
A 9-pin popper.
Ah, the 9-pin.
Memories. Look at it. Wait, there's that smile.
We're getting into some stuff that's you gotta kill you if you talk.
I'll shut up. I'll leave it at that.
We're gonna have a black SUV out in the parking lot.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Don't make me call my muscle in, man.
So, congratulations on the win, man.
Thank you so much, man.
Dude, it was cool. I'm a letter carrier, so I spend a lot of time in my vehicle. I got a riding route where I just kind of pull the mailbox lid down and throw the mail in there and move down to the next one. So I was able to follow along day 1 and day 2 and day 3, follow the whole tournament. And I saw you had a really good bag on day 1. So I'm like, cool. It's good to see you up there. I think you were in 3rd, or you were top 5 for sure.
Yeah.
Day 2, same thing. You brought in 22 something.
Yeah.
And then I was super excited to watch the weigh in. And I'm watching it. And okay, so first of all, the guy Gary Miller drops 27 something pounds. I'm like, holy cow, where did that come from? So you had a little bit of a deficit.
Yeah.
And then I'm watching you weigh in. You weighed in, and you had a good weight. And it just felt like it could go either way. I didn't really know. It was the weights were really tight right there in the top 3 or 4.
You talking about day 3 or day 2?
I'm talking about day 3. I'm talking about
Yeah.
the whole shebang. So I was watching it, and when the guy that was it Gary Miller that was in 2nd, I guess.
That was Carnwright.
Okay. Well, when it was you and him standing on stage, and his sack was lighter than it needed to be, I scared there was a herd of deer feeding corn over there. There's some people that feed the deer corn. I yelled so loud that the deer just took off and ran into the woods. I seriously was. I started clapping. I was like, yeah. It was so cool to see somebody that had been fighting, and finally things came together, and you won it. So, man,
I appreciate it.
I'm serious. It was cool to see you win, man. It really
I
was.
appreciate it, man. And like, man, I've made so many friends. And like, there's so many people. It's because it's just little old me, dude. Like, I'm nobody. But to know that many people, I mean, like, one of the first people that called me was Larry Nixon, man. Like, that was like, I mean, I got goosebumps right now saying it, but I mean, you always say, man, you win a BFL, your phone explodes, or you get a top 10 in a Toyota, your phone explodes. But it's still going off, dude. And it is my mission to respond to every single one of them. And I'm close to getting caught up on the phone. And now there's like Facebook messages, Instagram messages, and I will respond to you guys. It may take, I've been guiding ever since the tournament was over. So as soon as I get time, but thank you all so much. But, yeah, man, it was a very, I've had an interesting 3-year career on the St. Lawrence River. The first year I finished 4th, but the lake was open, and Corey and Chris Johnston and Justin Atkins were so far ahead. Like, I needed a 35-pound bag to have a prayer. So I stayed close, man. Caught like 40 or 50 4+ pounders the last day, and just had a ball, and like ended up finishing 4th, which, ended up being a good plan. Well, then you fast forward to last year, and I've been up here guiding, so like I knew where a lot of fish were, man. In fact, I knew where the winning school, the guy that Spike Stoker won, I knew where his school was. I think Tommy Dickerson finished 3rd. I knew that school, and honestly, and this isn't a shot at them, but I'd been here so long, but that was kind of like my E and F holes, like those are just places I was going to stop on if everything else didn't work out. But of course, I think I had a 1-ounce lead going into the last day, and my game plan in every tournament I fished here on the first 2 days is to get 20 pounds as quick as possible, and then run a little bit further to an area down around Chippewa Bay, and you don't catch as many down there, but you catch a lot of 5+s. So every day other than my first year, on day 3, I skip that 20-pound stuff and go straight to the 5-pound, try to get 5 big ones. Because I just assume you're going to need that to win. But every time, I don't need that. I just need another what I've been catching mostly.
Yeah.
Except for the first year when the lake was open. But last year in the Toyota, this year in the Bass Open, just another solid bag, man, and I'm there. But going into it, what those guys that are going to Clayton and up there towards the lake can catch. They can come in with 27 or 28 or 30. So I'm like, man, I can't go lay up and catch 21, and come in and get beat. You're in contention. So I swing for the fence, and it hasn't worked out. In fact, I weighted 16 pounds on day 3 last year in the Toyota. I weighted 16 pounds in the Open 3 weeks ago, and end up dropping some places. So this time I was like, man, just stay steady, like consistent, and hope it works out. And it finally did. But
So had things changed from the Open to the Toyota Series at all, or was it about the same? I noticed like Jody White won, and he had 71 something pounds, and you had 66, 11,
yeah,
I think it was. So a little bit lighter weights, but was it just? I mean, not like drastically lighter,
yeah. I don't fish. You go. We came out of Messina for the Toyota. We came out of Waddington for the Open. But Waddington's about 15 miles up the river towards the lake from Messina.
Okay.
And then I fish kind of from that Messina area to about Chippewa Bay, which is about a 50-mile stretch. Well, most of those guys, usually the top 10, man, 8 of the top 10 will be running a minimum of 80 something miles one way. But that area of the river is where I struggle. Like I go up there on my off days and I try to figure it out, and like it makes no sense to me. But for whatever reason, the actual riverine part of the river where there's a lot of current, and I don't really know why, but it just like I understand it for some reason. And I've lost my train of thought. What were we talking?
Well, so what?
So going into the Toyota, I had no clue what was happening up there where most of it's going to go down, But I had a pretty good idea of what was happening in the part I like to fish, and it was totally different than the Open, and it's totally different than any year I've been here. And in fact, of all the 4 major tournaments I've fished here now, these last 2, I felt like I was on less than I had been the 2 previous years. And in a way that may have helped me, because it's kind of like last year's. I knew where Spike was fishing, but Spike fished there for 3 days and never left. And I had 75 places I was trying to hit.
Yeah.
So he kind of just said, "Hey, I'm gonna work this school and make the best out of it," and it worked. Same thing happened with Tommy last year, Dickerson. He fished one tiny little area for 3 days, and here I'm running around, trying to drift over this boulder and drift over this hump and drift over this point, and piece together big ones off of a bunch of different places. And that's hard to do for 3 days. It worked out pretty good for 2 days, but day 3 of the Open this year was more a bad. I had some locals on 2 of my best spots. They had a little Canadian tournament going on, and they were ripping them, man. I was watching them. It was hard stomach. So I went to like kind of the 3rd best place that was still in sight of them. And my first 2 drifts, I jumped off a 5 and a 6. So that's how day 3 of the Open started. And then I'm typically pretty tough mentally, I don't really get too upset, but I spun out, man. And I turned around and ran all the way back to Messina, water I hadn't fished since last year. But I was thinking at least up there I could move around, and I know a lot of little quick drifts where, I might catch me 5, 4, 4.5 pounders, and that did not work.
What do you any idea why a fish jumps off like that? Is it just going to happen sometime? But 2 of them, 2 of them in a row. You think it was any idea?
Man, these are the strangest fish that I've ever dealt with, man. And they fight different every day. Some days you think they're walleye, they stay on the bottom and just strip drag, and then they finally come floating up. Some days you hook them and you think you missed them because they're coming to the surface so fast.
Hmm.
And if you can catch up to them and get tension on them and like kind of get them under control, a lot of times they'll stop right before they get to the surface. You'll see a bit of boil come up. But if you don't catch up to them, they go straight up, man, on a slack line.
Hmm.
And you know what that usually results in.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. I'm still kind of trying to figure that out, like if it's a certain weather pattern or something. But uh, they act really strange from day to day about how they bite, how they fight, how they I don't know.
Did you have to change your from each day? Did you have to change your presentation up at all?
No, I don't ever change my presentation because that's the only way I know how to catch them here.
Gotcha.
I
So
mean,
let's go.
I got a couple different baits I use, but I mean, I'm always drifting in the current. You know, changing areas of the river, changing depths. What I try to do, I said this in my article. I try to find an area of the river that's got a lot of fish in it and a lot of depth changes, a lot of contour, and I'll just spend. I'll drift that section, and typically the sizes will kind of get together. And some days the 5 pounders may be in 40 feet of water, like between two high spots. Some days the 5 pounders may be on top of the thing in 12 or 13 foot of water. But when you get in a really good area with a lot of fish, you're getting bites at every depth. But the smaller ones might be deep, the big ones shallower. And, you know, the 3 pounders may be sitting off the backside of something. But you kind of got to drift around and get some bites to see who's doing what. And then I'll try to hone in on that depth, you know, and the other parts of the river.
So paint the picture real quick. I've never been there, and I would imagine most people that are on here watching this have not been up there. What does it look like? What's the actual river look like? The banks, and then what are you seeing on the bottom? Like the depth. What kind of cover are you looking for? Just kind of give us a visual of what the area looks like while you're out there on the water.
Man, that's interesting because we were talking about it on my guide trip today. From Messina, where the Toyota started from, to down around Chippewa Bay, where I typically is about as far as I go. It looks like three different rivers, and there's parts of it where the U.S. looks a certain way. When the closer to the lake you get, the more like Alaska it reminds me. You know, it's a lot of bluffy pine tree type, you know, surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Everything's more kind of like bluffy rock, and then you get down the river towards Messina, and it's kind of looks more like home, you know. And you get some like you know more chunk rock and that kind of stuff. It's like a lot of bedrock around. Uh, you know, the closer to the lake you get,
Okay.
almost like underwater bluffy type. I can't think of anything we could compare it to back home, really.
Well, are those like sheer drop offs then? When you're talking like from 30 to 40 or from 20 to 40, are
Like
they sheer drop offs?
the bottom of the lake?
Yeah, dude, we fished a place today where there's a little rock island, you know, about the size of a couple of bass boats that's out of the water, and you can drift right beside it and be in 40.
Okay.
Huh.
Because I guess that current's just been so strong for so many years coming out of Lake Ontario. You know, it's just carved these deep trenches through these, you know, I guess at one time they were probably all like rock islands kind of deal.
Right.
Maybe
But I
close
mean,
to 2 years ago.
it's mostly it's 100% rocky with some sand. Well, it's basically a real fine shell, but it looks like sand. Big bright turquoise spots on the bottom.
So are you mostly targeting? Is there a certain cover that seems to be better than others, like boulders, or is it just current breaks, like underwater eddies, drops, humps? What is there a certain thing that you're kind of looking for? Or is it just kind of a little bit of everything?
All of it, man.
All of it.
It's more about getting in a stretch that's got a lot of fish, and then fishing all of that, until you kind of again figure out. The cool thing about it is there's so many of them. When you get in an area that's got a bunch, you're catching them on all of that. You're catching them in holes. You're catching them on the face of stuff where the current hits. You're catching them on top of a long hump, and you're catching them where it drops off in the back. But that changes daily with where the big ones want to be. And everything I weighed in on day 2 came out of 47 foot of water, and it was basically just a flat bedrock, like bottom of the river. There'd be some real subtle, like little 1 foot ridges, where the bedrock like got high, and then it would drop back off.
So how are you finding these fish? Are you able to find them on side scan, or do you just have to kind of find what you're looking for, the ingredients, and drift down through them and find out?
I just look for the ingredients and drift. I can't see them scan. I see some of them on forward fate on active target, but
okay.
Man, I tell you, I'm good buddies with Micah Frazier, man. And he won an Elite Series event here in like 18 or 19. And the way this whole thing started is I just stunk up the Central Division in 2021 in the Toyotas, and the championship was going to be at Pickwick. As you know, I've got quite a bit of experience on Pickwick. I've got to be in this championship. So I come up here to try to qualify. Well, I go to Champlain and get my teeth kicked in. And I'm talking Micah and them had just been there and here. And I was talking to him after Champlain, and I said, dude, I finished 130th. Like, I can't even probably make the championship now. And he said, you're going to love St. Lawrence. And I was like, well, you told me I was going to love Champlain, And he told me something, and I'm sorry, but I can't divulge what he told me until he and I both retire. But he gave me a little phrase, and it was all he needed to say for this place to really make sense to me. Okay. And I hate to do that. I hate to be that guy.
No, it's all good.
That's a cliffhanger. Right
I'm glad you're holding that in.
And hey, if I'd come up with it on my own, I would probably share it because I got what I wanted here, and that was this. So
there you go. Nice.
But Mike is still in business. He's got an event here in a couple weeks, and but it was a very simple thing that he told me, and he said it's going to make sense to you.
Yeah,
and he was right.
Well, and a lot of times it doesn't matter what. I mean, there it obviously made a huge difference, but a lot of the times it doesn't matter what body of water you're on. Sometimes you just need that much, right? Most of us, all we need is that much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's not an area, it's not a bait, it's a clue, like you just said. It's something that's so small, and a lot of times that little piece we can all build off of and create a whole plan for the
sometimes
future.
It's just confidence. Sometimes it's a little confidence thing that gets you.
It's picking up a little black and blue jig and going to town.
Well, I can tell you what he told me. The first place that I looked at that kind of fit what we had talked about, I catch these minnow looking things. They end up being lake chubs, and I sent him pictures, and I said, "Yeah, you're right, dude." I said, me and this place are gonna get along real good." And but it wasn't long, man. It took me probably 2 days, man, and I started finding the kind of stuff that I felt like I needed to be finding. I mean, I caught 24 pounds off a stretch, and I was like, I think that's pretty good. I don't know. I'd never been here.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I got to give him a big shout out, man, and I wish I could say it, but because it's super simple, but it clicks, man.
Well, it'll just be that much better when it comes out.
Yeah.
Wait later on down the road.
Yeah.
I heard some stuff about gobies recently, about how you're dragging your bait like a Ned rig or something, and it's just machine gun after machine gun after machine gun, and you think it's one goby following, but apparently they have a little short home range in their territorial. Like something comes through their little area, they slam it, and then when it moves out, they leave it alone. But by then, it's in another Goby's area, and then they slam it. So
It's
above,
just
above the
multiple gobies.
yeah, above the water, you're like, this pesky Goby has been following my Ned rig for 20 yards. Well, it's probably 20 different Gobies.
It's probably 200 different Gobies.
Okay.
Man.
Okay.
You can actually look at them at the boat ramps, man, and see them. And I see that Chris just told you to ask me about my Goby research, but I've spent a lot of time studying Gobies and how they act, and watching underwater footage of them, watching them with my eyes, and I basically have just tried to without using a live Goby get as close as I can. And I think over time, again, this place is good enough, man. Everybody can go out and catch a 20 bag one day, but it's not that easy to to stay in that 21 to 25 pound range every day, especially in the river part. So I'm probably more anal about what I do here than anything I've ever done. Back home I'm like, as long as the spook's bone, they'll eat it. It's like, as long as your jig's black and blue, they'll eat it. It doesn't matter. But up here, man, I do a lot of tweaking to my bait and a lot of, like I say, studying what a Goby does. And forward facing's been huge for me here. I can't target the fish because the current's going so fast and your bait's so light. If you see him and throw to him, like your bait's going to be 200 yards down the river before it gets to that fish. But I can watch how they react as I'm drifting through there. And I've learned a lot of key little things about that, like what your bait needs to do and doesn't need to do. You want him to think it's you want him to not know it's fake as long as you can.
How clear is that water up there?
It's 74 right now on the
clear,
surface.
not temperature.
Oh, clear. About 20-foot visibility, probably.
Dang.
I mean, you couldn't read like a beer can brand on the bottom in 20, but you could see the bottom for sure.
Okay. Gotcha. Stephanie had a question. It was about the river versus the lake. Talk about the dynamics of the two different kinds of water that you'd be fishing, and then why sometimes you can fish the lake, sometimes you can't. What's that all about?
To the best of my knowledge, these cities like Waddington and Messina are paying the tournaments to come here, and then all the top 10 are catching all their fish in Kingston and in Cape Vincent and out in some of those cities out there around Chameau Bay and all that. So they're getting all the publicity. So all the tourists are coming there and not to their cities. So they took it off limits to keep the cities to paying them to come.
Okay, that makes sense.
But like the elite, I think, goes out of Clayton, and that's right up there at the lake. So they'll be able to go in the lake, and they'll catch big bags. They're huge out there, man, real big.
They're probably easier to stay on top of too, I would imagine. I mean,
not for me, man. I catch big bags out there, but they're harder to keep up with for me. That current kind of keeps them positioned, like makes more sense to me.
That's true.
Yeah. But I mean, you take a dude like Corey or Chris Johnston, man, and they can spend 6 hours driving and getting gas and go out there and catch 25 in that 2 hours every day. And I'd love to learn how to do that. I've tried some, and I've caught some great big stringers out there, but it may take me 6 hours to find them and then 30 minutes to catch them. And then I go back the next day and they're gone, and it takes me 6 more hours to find them. So to me, it's been a really cool, I feel like it's kind of me versus the world kind of deal. Cause like I'm the only dude, I think, that's 100% dedicated to staying within 50 miles of takeoff in the current every tournament here. I mean, some guys are doing it and making the cuts, but everybody has to spend at least 1 or 2 days at Thousand Islands, Clayton area. And Jody White, man, we were doing the pre-tournament interview the other day. He interviewed a few dudes about like what they thought was going to happen in the tournament. And off the record, we were talking, and he was like, he said, the problem, man. He said, let's say 40 guys make that run, and only 10 of them catch them on day one, and then only 5 of them catch them on day two, and then only 1 or 2 of them catch them on day three. It's going to be more weight than you can catch in the river because they're just bigger. They're bigger. The closer to the lake you get, the bigger they get. I mean, I caught a 7-pounder the other day in the river, which was my PB.
Saw
But-
that.
But I mean, Corey and Chris catch those big high sixes all the time, man. In the lake, like it's not even a big deal in the
It's because
lake.
they're burning more calories to hold in the current. You think?
I would that could be it, and that's another thing. So the lake, it's weird because the lake makes the river, so it's actually wider upstream. Most rivers are skinny upstream and get wide as they go down, but this one's opposite. So when the lake comes into the river, and that's what they call the Thousand Islands because there are thousands of islands. It's real spread out, lots of current breaks. You can troll around and scope, and you can get up and fish sand flats and things like that. And you kind of lose all that when you get it in the section I fish. It's kind of more just straight.
So
It's probably about a mile wide.
is that Thousand Islands area a lot like Paris, New Johnsonville area?
No, man. I mean, again, it's just so hard to describe. It's probably 3 or 4 miles wide, and literally just islands from the size of a boat to the size of a 10-acre islands just everywhere.
Okay.
I mean, absolutely everywhere. It's kind of sketchy, really, to run because.
What's the water? I mean, is there channels that you can actually run through there?
Yeah, there's like one main channel that's marked, and
The rest
then
of it's just trim her up and let her fly, or
I'm sure I think that's what the Johnson boys do. But
gotcha. I've watched enough of them do it down on the south end of Kentucky Lake that made my butthole pucker. So
yeah, the good thing about Kentucky, if you hit bottom, it's probably going to be mud or gravel, but up here it's going to be a rock.
Yeah, okay. You're gonna stop.
So I get kind of sketched out up there, but I've still spent a lot of time up there. And again, it doesn't click in here like it does in the river part for some reason.
Chris had asked a question a while ago. I don't want to miss it. He said, if you had the choice to spend the rest of your days in Florida, Kentucky, or New York, what would it be?
Oh, New York, easy.
No question.
No question.
I
hate it. I hate the. That's a strong word.
You dislike. I don't like that word either.
I think he may want to put another adjective in front of hate.
It's weird up here, man. I tell everybody, I used to think New York, man. I'm like, dude, this can be all cityfied up there, and big, tall skyscrapers everywhere. And like, bro, it's more redneck up here than it is in Tennessee, man. Like, we're in the backwoods, but like everything shuts down at like 8 o'clock, man. Like, we got to make sure we get off the water by 6:30 on our guide trips because we're gonna have to eat Burger King if nothing else. So it would be a kind of a depressing life, especially in the wintertime. I mean, I guess I could ice fish, but I mean the fishing is incredible, man.
So where's home now?
Right now, it's in Ogdensburg, New York.
He's a drifter.
Yeah, the fishing gypsy, man. I don't know where I'm going next. Somewhere.
I love it.
Somewhere where there's good fishing, bro.
So on the coast side, it took 18 and a half pounds per day to win out of the back of the boat. I was amazed at how many 21, 22, 23-pound bags of smallmouth were caught out of the back of the boat. And Chris was saying, Brent, why is the Carolina rig so popular in the river? I heard a bunch of those co-anglers say a green pumpkin zoom speed crawl on a Carolina rig was how they were catching them. That little crawl's got to look like a little goby, I guess.
Buddy, I've done it. My co-anglers have done it. I've had guide clients do it. We don't catch them on it. like that. I don't know how they're doing that. This is pretty weird, man. This is pretty weird. So my buddy Clay Reese, who's sitting next door to me here in our
What's up,
hotel
Clay?
room, he's
What up?
he's worn out, man. He's had a rough couple guide trips the last couple of days, but not from they've smashed them, but
Works hard.
it's work, man. People don't think it is, but it is. But
Mhm.
uh, Taylor, what's his name? Wozniewski. He won the co-angler. He roomed with us. He's our boy.
Oh,
So
okay.
so I won. Clay finished sixth on the pro side, and Taylor won the co side. So
Sweet.
we had about 150 G's living up in the Windjammer Lodge.
Get some good juju going on in the crib.
But Taylor practiced with Clay, man, and he threw the Carolina rig a lot. And Clay fishes pretty much like I do in the river, and neither one of us catch them on it. And he kept coming in every night, and he's like, "Dude, Taylor's catching freaking big ones on it, man." I'm like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "There's just a big old 1 ounce egg weight." I'm like, "How is he not hung up all the time?" And he's like, "Dude, I don't know." But I mean, it's obviously a thing that works, but that's something I haven't had any luck with. But that is true. Taylor won that tournament on a Carolina rig. But what is strange is he drew Gary Miller the first day, who had 27 pounds the second day. And Gary was making the run. I think Gary was running like 89. I think 91 miles was our cutoff, and Gary was running like 89 or 90 miles and fishing 6 foot or less. And like Taylor said, neither one of them were catching much, so he just picked up his big old Carolina rig and heaved it out there and started jacking them old biggins.
Huh.
And caught 23 something behind Gary, and Gary had like 19. So then when Gary came in with 27 after day one or day two, I was like, freaking Taylor showed him how to catch them, man. Like that ain't cool. So Taylor only had like 8 pounds on day two, but he made the cut, and he draws a dude that's drifting on day three and catches 23 behind him on the Carolina rig. So, and if you knew Taylor, man, neither one of us can figure out how in the world that dude ever catches a bass. We love him, but
Good thing he's not watching or is
I
ever
hope,
going to
he,
watch
I,
this
hope,
again.
I hope he watches it. I owe him one.
Shout out to Taylor.
Yeah, Taylor W. But
win.
but yeah, man, that's like I say, I'm not trying to hold out on anybody. I drop shot Ned rig, and I throw that little football jig that I designed, which is basically just a to me a better version of anything that's available on the market. But there's a lot of things that would work.
So did you day one when you went out there? Did things go according to plan? I mean, did you have your 20 pounds in the boat quick, and then you could plink off some upgrade, or how did your day one go?
It went absolutely horrible. Which that's good because usually day three is the one that goes horrible for me here. But so I fished the Bass Open, and they had a 30-day off limits, so I wasn't able to be on the river until we had 5 days of practice, and then I got sick one day, so I basically got 3.5 days of practice before the Open. So I hadn't seen this river since last September, and everybody thinks I'm lying, man. I've got three like stretches of this river that I really like, and I've got about 10,000 waypoints in each one. From
How long is the stretch? How many miles is the stretch?
About 10 miles.
Okay.
You run around in. If you could see my graph, I mean, it's hilarious, man, because you can zoom out and you see where all the juice is. They're just the waypoints will be cluttered up, and I put a waypoint every time we catch a fish. If it's over 4 pounds, I'll put the weight of that fish in, and then I use different icons every year, and I use different color icons every week, so I can tell my years and my which ones are most recent, if that makes any sense. So day one of practice for the Open, I went to my favorite stretch of the river, and out of all of these clusters of waypoints, I just randomly picked out a little group that had a bunch of 4 to 5+ pound waypoints. Dropped my trolling motor, made the drifted for about 45 minutes, and I had 23 pounds. And I was like, this is going to be easy. And I would have never called the rest of the day if that had been a tournament day. I caught some, but nothing good. Day 2, I go to the next section of river. Same thing. Just looked at all my waypoints. I was like, there's a bunch of 4+ waypoints. I'll start right there. 21 pounds in 20 minutes. Rest of the day, never catch another fish over 3.5 pounds. This happened 3 days in a row. So long story short, in the open, obviously I started on those waypoints and the fish were gone. And I would just keep, drifting and then move over a little and drift. And luckily I just hit them, man, the first 2 days. It took me about 2 hours the first morning of the open. And once I hit them, I caught 22 like that. And then I ran 25 miles to where the big ones live. It took me about 2.5 hours to find them. And then I caught 3 5s and a big 4. And then I headed back. And then day 2, same. They had all moved around, but looked up, found them, had like 23 something. And then day 3 was a disaster. So I started guiding after that and noticing all these places I fished in the open are dried up, man. Like, not only are we not catching big ones, we're not really catching anything.
Are they moving right now? Like, is it like a post spawn thing going on? Well, I mean, why are they gone? Did the bait move, or are they actually moving to a different position from one position? Like post spawn, they move around a lot more. They're working their way out to the summer places.
Dude, I don't know, man. I mean, this is brand new to me.
Okay, gotcha.
I have spent a lot of time here, but this is only my 3rd year being here, or 3rd summer. So it's something I've never seen. Like last year when I got up here, I started in early July and caught them off the same places till September. Like, so this is a whole new kind of, whatever that's going on with them that I've never
You're
seen.
saying those fish you're catching, theoretically, you're catching the same group of fish from July to September.
Last year, absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
And they may thin out on a place or the size change, but as soon as that happens, you find them on another stretch that they were supposed to be on and hadn't been on. That kind of deal.
But they're relating to that area, and they kind of stay. Some fish will stay in those areas regardless.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay,
absolutely. And
you're not moving miles to catch those same fish. You're just moving over drifts or
hundreds of yards. Yeah, more like hundreds of yards.
Gotcha.
Than miles, and it's not been like that this year. So, I mean, I was able to get enough bites to make my guide trips. I think make the customers happy. But I was like, man, I got work to do going into this Toyota practice. So I basically started going to where those groups of fish before the open were, because they were the right kind. They were the right size, and just spending entire days, man, in that 10-mile stretch of river, basically fishing anything, even if it wasn't on a map or didn't look good. And I ended up catching a lot of them, like I said earlier, on some really featureless, not a lot of contour, just kind of, you might just be in straight 42 foot of water for like a half a mile, catching them on that kind of stuff. Which is really bizarre to me because they're usually on, definite structure like contour.
It makes sense why they're there, most of the time.
Exactly. So,
okay. So going into day 1.
So going into day 1, I went on a big tangent.
No, that's perfect.
My buddy Nathan Adams came up and linked as a co-angler and with me and practiced. And I said, dude, like, I know this section of river holds a ton of fish and good ones. Like, we're just going to spend a day here till we find them. And I went into some water I've never even put a boat in before. And big area, but we spent about 3 hours in there and had about 24 pounds. And I said, all right, I got y'all, I got y'all dialed in. I'm starting right here. So day 1, man, I roll up in there. and I've caught like a 3.5 and threw a 3-pounder back before my co-angler even got his rods unstrapped because I'm like, I'm not going to need them all 3-pounders, And next thing I know, it's 10:30, man, and I had a little over 4 and like 17 something, and I was like, man, this ain't good. Like, that's nothing up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, man, I guess I got to go up there to where those big ones are and just pray that I can, catch a few of them. So I make another 25-mile run. The very first spot I stopped on, I caught a 6.6.
Hmm.
And, that helps, man. That's a
Mhm.
3-pound call. And I said, buddy, it's fixing to go down, man. Like, this is going to go good. And within the blink of an eye, man, all these boats come running from the lake, back towards us, and it's getting really dark, and the waves are like coming over the front of my boat, hitting me in the knees, man. And I couldn't fish, man. I couldn't fish that stuff effectively because it's right where the river kind of necks down right there. You kind of come out of that Thousand Islands area, and it starts necking down, so those waves just build up. And I'm like, man, like I got here too late. And that's basically what I weighed in. Then I had a 6.6, a 4.4, and 3.3 somethings. So everybody's like, sweet, dude, you got a 6.6 and 22 pounds. And I'm like, man, I missed a chance today.
Yeah. You could have had a mega bag.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because I don't catch a lot of 6+s, man, doing what I do.
And it's not uncommon to have replace those 3-pounders with 4, like mid 4-pounders.
Exactly.
Yeah. You could have
So,
very easily had 25.
yeah. And then you're cooking with gas after day
Mhm.
one. So I'm like, all right, man, I've already dug myself a hole. Luckily Travis Manson had a good bag that day. But I'm not worried about that because I know those boys, they got a tougher mountain to climb than me because they're making that crazy run. They got to catch them fast, and they got to get gas twice, and they got to make sure they get back without anything going wrong. So I still feel like, they're under more pressure than I am because I got a lot more time to fish. But that day I felt like a blown opportunity. So I was a little bummed out over that.
That's the story that people don't hear. That's what's cool about having these live streams and where people can share that kind of stuff. You just see the 22 pounds, like you said, and you're like, man, that dude had a banner day. You don't hear about,
yeah.
Well, and that's a lot of, I think that's a lot of winners though. Like anybody that's caught that 25, 26, 27 pound bag, we see that and we're like, man, you must have smoked him today. No, I caught 5.
Yeah.
And they were the 5 right ones.
Or
today.
the ones that jumped off, the guy that finished in 6th place, 7th place, like your buddy over there. People jump off a 5 or 6 pounder. You don't hear about that the weigh-in, really. I mean, some people whine about it, but most people, they don't even talk about it.
We think about it, you jump off a 5 every day of the tournament, and you weigh in a 3, and you lost by 4 pounds. Guess what? You would have won the tournament.
You would have, man. And
every day.
It's a very much like a chess match up here, and I like that. I've always loved that about fishing. I loved it about Kentucky Lake, kind of like playing the, kind of like thinking what Billy Schrader and what some of those guys are going to do, and then how I'm gonna my defense to stop that from being better than this. I don't know. I know that's confusing, but
no, I understand.
I really love that part of fishing, and here it's really cool because, like I say, it's me versus the rest of the field because I'm the goofball that's staying where there aren't supposed to be a lot of big ones, right? So, but at the same time, we're both rolling the dice because I'm having to weed through 50 or 60, 70 fish a day to get my big bags, and they're having to hope they get 5 bites and make it back home to get their big bags. So it's been pretty cool.
And you got more time to adjust too. If something changes a little bit,
right,
you might have a little bit of time to make a little bit of adjustment. When you're running, when you got 2 hours to fish, you got to land on the spot. And you got to have everything ready to roll.
Yes.
If your fish moved or something, you got to spend 30 minutes relocating them. You got an hour and a half to fish left.
Well, and you said some of your drifts are 45-minute drifts. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I'm in a crunch too in a different way. I've got more hours, more available time, but I've also probably got more territory that I have to cover.
Right. That
to
makes
find
sense.
them.
Yeah.
and probably while they're looking for theirs and catching nothing, I'm constantly catching fish, which sounds like a good problem to have. But a 3 pounder up here is like a friggin' 40-pound striper, man. I mean, they take time to get in, and you have to fizz every single one of them up here, man. So I usually, man, if they're not like a quality three, I usually pitch them early in the day because number one, they're not going to do you much good. Number two, you can usually go catch one if you need one. And number three, it's just time having to fizz them and make sure they're, go back down when you do call them. So,
Well,
I,
and fish care at the end of the day too. You don't want to put that 3 in there at 7 o'clock in the morning and it end up dying on you by.
yeah.
And you're stuck
See,
with it.
I had four, and I spent an hour a day, man, trying to take care of my fish in the open, and I had four die over 3 days. I was catching. I had one school in 50 foot of water. In that second morning of the open, I caught 20, right around 20 and a half, fairly quickly once I found them. And I had 2 4 1s die, and you can't call a dead one in the open. And I
Hmm.
caught 2 4 12s later and had to let them go.
Ah,
So I cost myself 3 pounds in the open over 3 days because of fish care. And I mean, I don't think it was on me because I mean, I did everything I was supposed to do. It's just,
And how do you throw a 4-1 back?
huh?
How do you throw a 4-1 back too, not knowing if you're gonna?
if it looked like
Yeah,
it
like
might die or
if it's
something.
looking sick, yeah. I mean that's not a bad fish, man.
No.
I mean I've thrown a lot of 3.5s back before I had a limit here, but once they get over 4, I consider them, you know, they need to be in there until you got one bigger.
Right.
Right.
Right. So
Because
day two, you're
So day two, I said, to heck with that place I started on yesterday. That place was garbage, and I honestly, man, I ran to a place that I caught all my weight on that day, and the biggest one I'd caught out there. It was that real flat, featureless deal. So I didn't really think anybody'd be messing with it because it didn't show up on a map or look very good, and I thought it was kind of a 19-pound deal, 19 or 20. Um, And I started off, I caught a couple 312s, then I caught a four, then I caught a 411. I was like, man, that's a big one for out here. And then I left because that kind of got me around 20. And I left and fished for some what I call like big fish, where you're drifting over one single boulder kind of deal to hope to get one bite. And every one of those I hit, I got a bite. And they were all like 3 3 3/4 pounders. And I was like, man, usually it's nothing or a good one. And I looked at my code and I was like, I don't know what to do, man. I said, I guess I'm going to go back out there and just try to get rid of these three and high threes with 4 pounders. And I go back out there and I catch like a 4.5 and a 5.6.
hmm.
And I was like, okay, there's some big ones out here. So that was my 22, whatever, day two. So day three, I'm like, man, I don't really know.
So hold on. Still hasn't went to plan yet. Nothing has went to plan yet.
Nothing's gone to plan. Everything's screwed up.
How'd your co-anglers do? Did your co-anglers catch
Uh,
decent fish or?
I got a good day three story on the co-angler.
Okay, we'll get to that in a minute.
So my day one dude caught several keepers, man, but he only had like 10 something. And my day two, man, Cooper Jet, he was a young dude, super cool dude. He had like 15 something. He had 21 the first day. He was in second behind our buddy Taylor.
Okay.
And he had like 15 something, man. I think he stayed at like sixth place, so he did all right. And then day three, I'm running up the river, man, and I'm like, dude, I don't know where I'm gonna start. Like nothing else has worked like it was supposed to. I said, I'm just gonna go to where I caught that 22 pounds yesterday. Why not? So I roll up out there, man. First drift, catch like a high three. Second drift, I catch like some 2.5s. I just pitch them back. About that time, Jody White rolls up at the camera boat and he pulls up and he's like, you got any? I was like, yeah, I got like 3.5. And catch like a 3-pounder, and I'm like, I'll throw him in there since it's the last day, and my day threes have been jinxed. I better keep some of these suckers, and then my next one's like a 5.8, and I was like, dang. And I mean, within 30 minutes, man, I had 4 that went like 18 something. And I said, dang, Jody, I said, I'm way ahead of my quota for day threes, man. I'm a 16-pound dude on day 3. And then I remember I caught a 215, and I said, man, normally you don't get a ride, dude. I was like, but that's going to get me like close to 20. So I put him in there. Well, my co-angler was getting antsy back there, man. And he started, I guess he thought because I was catching them and he wouldn't, they were like up there with me, even though we're like drifting 2 miles an hour. And he kept tangling in my line. And I said, hey, man, I'm not fussing at you or anything. I'm trying to help you. I said, cut that little 1/8 ounce weight off and put a 1/2 ounce on there. Drop it straight to the bottom. I said, the fish are all down through here and we're floating through the fish. I said, so if you're doing it right, I said, you'll go through them first. You'll have the advantage. Well, 10 minutes later, I'm netting a 4 and a 6 for my co-angler.
That's the guide came out in you.
Yeah. So,
guide's okay to come out, but not on day 3 when you're in contention.
well, like I say, man, I would never intentionally hinder him, and he was catching fish that morning, but they were tiny little things.
But he was hindering you at that point, right? Like
throwing the 1/4 ounce weight.
Yeah, throwing the smaller weight, he's hindering you and causing you pain and anguish.
Yeah, in fact, when I caught the 5.5 and he netted it, his line was all tangled up in mine, so that could have gone real bad.
Oh yeah,
that I mean, ultimately was the winning fish.
Was he throwing the same type of bait that you were when he started?
I was throwing my little football jig deal, and he was drop shotting.
Okay.
And I mean, I always number one, man, I've done this crap a lot. I can feel that tiny little jig, man, crawling over a zebra mussel in 67 foot of water. But when you haven't done it a lot, you can't tell what that thing's doing down there. So a drop shot's a lot more forgiving and easier to kind of stay in contact with. And they eat it, obviously. I mean, the dude caught a 6-pounder. But in my mind, I'm like, I don't know that I was going to catch that fish, but had I caught that fish, that changes the game.
Mm-hmm.
That takes me from 19 immediately to 22 something, and it's not even 8 o'clock yet. So, that's in my brain. I'm like, I can't just go catch a 6-pounder at will and make up for that. So I really hit a lull, man. I finally did get to like 20 and some change. And I said, okay, man, it's time to go hit some of those little short drifts and target a bigger fish. I hit all the ones that had worked the day before and didn't even get a bite, didn't even catch the 3-pounders. So I said, okay, man, let's go back out there to where we started. And, maybe they moved down a little deeper, moved in a little shallower. I went out there, spent like another hour and got to be back at 2. It's another short day. Didn't even get a bite out there. And I'm like, man, it just ain't meant to be. So I basically just asked the good Lord to just, in my mind, I said, if you're going to ever guide me to a big one, please step in right now.
This is the time.
And then I thought of a place in my head where I could probably catch one, and I was running to it. And as I was running to it, I ran by where I caught the 6.6 on day 1. I hadn't fished it yet because there was a boat close by, and I didn't want him to just, in case something good happened, I didn't want him to see. And he was gone, so I did a U-turn and went back, and I drifted over where I caught the 6.6, and I caught a 4.12. So that called like a 3.5. I'm like, okay, we're getting a little better now. And then went to a couple other places, had confidence in, nothing. And then for some crazy reason, I went and drifted over a place that I hadn't fished since last year and caught another like one close to 5 pounds. And that gave me my weight for that day. And then on the way in, stopped and checked my fish 3 times and they were happy. I did still have like a 3.12 in there. Got to check in, pulled up, sat there about 10 minutes, Josh Peck comes down to check live and dead, and he's like, "Bro, you got a dead one." And I was like, "Nope." I said, "I stopped right outside here 10 minutes ago, and they were alive." And he was like, he pulled it out, and that smallest one was dead as a hammer. And I said,
No kidding.
you just lost this freaking tournament by 4 ounces. I guarantee you that's what's going to happen." So I threw a little Brent Anderson hissy fit, man. Started throwing stuff and uh, made all my buddies get away from my boat for a few minutes so I could salt.
Everybody's
then
standing back.
Jody comes over because he knows my co-angler's got a giant. Co never caught any more, by the way. He had 2 for 10 something. And I said, "Jody, please tell me they smashed him, man." I said, "Just like, please tell me I'm going to lose by pounds and not ounces." He said, "Well, dude," he said, "we took out at 12:30, and at that point in time, you were going to win this tournament because Gary Miller only had 1 fish." He said, "But it's close." He was like, "Spencer's got like 21. He was like, "I think you got Conright beat." And I was just like, dude. So it was a long 2 hours waiting to get up there, man, and see how it all hashed out. Because, we're all up there at the tanks, man, talking. And Spencer's like, "I'll weigh my fish, and they're dead on." He said, "I've got 21 pounds, and I've got a dead fish." He said, "You got me beat if you got 22. And then Carnwright's like, "Dude, I got 20, and I got a dead fish." He's like, "You got me beat." So the wild card is Gary Miller. And Gary comes up, and
The guy that caught 27 pounds.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's like, "We already know he don't have anything like what he had, but he's the only one of us that hadn't weighed his fish." And he was like, "I don't know, man, somewhere between 17 and 19." And I'm just like, oh. So it was man, it was rough, dude.
So when you walked across the stage, you don't know until the fish are dropped on the scale, obviously, especially when it's that close. But how are you feeling? Did you feel like you had a shot, like a legitimate shot? I mean, what were your thoughts going? What was going through your mind while you're standing up there? No.
If I had felt like I had a shot, I wouldn't have acted like I did, which was crying like a baby.
Yeah.
Like I was in.
I love emotions.
I was in shock, man, because anybody that guesses their weight always guesses low. Even I weigh mine, and I still tell people a little low just in case the scale's off.
Mm-hmm.
But there was one last little piece of drama that happened when I put them on the scale. So Mark's got his scale up there that he's looking at, and it shows your raw weight or whatever, before your dead fish penalty. But up on the computer, when he pushes that button, it shows your weight with your penalty. So I'm looking at the computer screen. So when he punches it, it says 22.3, so, which means I had 22.7 before my penalty. Well, then and I'm like, oh, well, did all I could do. And he goes, get a couple out. Well, I look down at his scale, and it's just stuck on 22.8. So they had flopped when he pushed it, and it shorted me an ounce. And that's happened to me before. And if you tell Mark, he'll redo it. But just with all the crap going through my head, man, I didn't even think to ask him to reweigh him. So then I walked off stage, and I'm like, okay, now if I lose.
The drama is unfolding in BA's head right now.
Yeah. Right.
I'm like, first of all, I think that 6-pounder should have been mine. So I want to lose by more than whatever that thing would have given me with instead of a 312. I was like, but for sure, I got to lose by more than 4 ounces because I got a dead fish. Now I got to lose by more than 5 ounces because I left an ounce on the scales. So I'm just like, bro, you've blown this thing every way you could possibly blow it.
When it's your time, isn't it?
I say it every time, man. But for some reason, I guess I don't believe it because I get so mad when it don't go my way. But when you can't, when it's your time, you can't blow it. And when it is, or when it's your time, there's nothing you can do wrong. And when it's not, there's not, like, you can't just make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the truth. You see that. You see that so many times.
Well, and I was just looking at the stat. Like, you didn't win by a whole hell of a lot, right?
No, it was ounces, man. Not
Yeah.
enough. Not near enough.
And for the guy to come in, Gary,
You won by 10 ounces.
yeah, and Gary comes in and he's like, I got 17 to 19. I really don't know.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, if I'm you, I'm deflated, right? I'm in the dumps.
Buddy, I've already been deflated since that 6-pounder got caught that day. But let's say it goes a different way and I catch that 6-pounder. That 312 that dies gets cold. I got about 24, 25 pounds. And then in the weigh-in line, it's like, oh, you got it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm still ecstatic, but I'm not a friggin' basket case like I was, man. I mean, that was and I've gotten emotional at 2 tournaments, man, in my life, and I've been fortunate, to have some decent success in tournaments from the club level to here. But I said it about Del Hollow. There was just something about Del Hollow, man, that was special to me, and I wanted to win something there so bad. And when I finally did, I did it with that giant, 9, almost 10-pound fish that's just blew everybody's mind, and I got a little choked up. And then same feeling here, man. The first time I came here, I was like, dude, this place is awesome. Um, I've got to win here. Sorry, I'm reading some comments over there that are getting a little bit rough over there on the comments.
Oh, I haven't
But
gotten that far. I was holding off on one here. You were
yeah.
talking about the jig. Is that a private label jig or is that something that's available?
So man, what happened on that deal is there there's a lot of things that work just as good, but there were features with all the different ones that I liked, so I decided just to have it made. Um, and then I kind of got to deal with True Bass, man. Usually, if I have an idea, they'll kind of take it on and mass produce it. And the idea was to have about 5,000 of them ready to go in case I did good up here and people could get it. And it's got some issues, man. With it's basically got a Ned lock keeper, that's like a little lead barb that's on the shank of the hook, and it's breaking loose, man. Um, and I just don't want to sell. I don't want to put something out there that's not, up to standards. I use it, but I have to put some glue on the thing to make it hold, and it's going to take a long time to put 2 dots of glue on 5,000 jigs, So,
Like the old days of
I
running
mean,
big swim baits and screwing one of them up and
right.
starting all over again.
So I mean, if somebody wanted some and wanted to contact me, I could, I'm not opposed to gluing up a couple dozen of them every once in a while and shipping them out. But as far as us just being able to have it packaged on the shelves, it's yeah, probably just missed a shot, for it to really be just like it with Frank, I had a top 10 at Pickwick catching them on Frankie and Frankie Five Fingers, and it was during COVID, and Tackle Warehouse ordered like 2,000 of them, and he couldn't get any parts in. So I'm always snake bitten the tackle.
It's timing,
business.
yeah. Somebody else had a question about the skirt on that jig.
You're right. It did get a little western there for a little bit, didn't it? In the comments.
It happens. It's the world we live in now.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
There we go.
I don't want to talk about that, man.
That's not what this is about tonight. It's about you.
Chris says, Brent, is the plastic on the football jig for scent or to help the bait stand up off the bottom?
The trailer, it's just to represent the Goby's tail.
Okay.
So what happened when I came up here a few years ago? We were catching them drop shot and Ned, and then we got to catching Gobies, and I got to looking at those Gobies, and I was like, man, them suckers are cool. They got a big fat head and that little, skinny tail. They're just kind of a little straight, no nothing. And I was like, man, I bet you could put a dang turd on a jig and catch them suckers. And I just happened to have some of those Kitech football jigs, and they liked it a lot. But you get hung up a lot out here, and you can get them out if you want to run back up past it and pop it off the back, but it's a lot quicker just to break it off and tie another one on. And I got tired of breaking off $10 jigs.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I started using some different little finesse jigs, and like I say, they eat them all, but a football head comes through the rock better. It doesn't get hung as much as say like the little Ned jig or the Z-Man jig. Um, and then anything with a wire keeper and Z-Man product, when you try to slide it over that wire keeper, it tries to bunch up on the back. And that Ned lock, it pops right over it, man, and it's on. You don't even need glue. And I was like, it'd be sick to have a football jig with the Ned lock keeper, in the right size and a little better hook that doesn't bend out. So I was like, hey, I'll just get one made. So that's kind of how that came about.
Okay.
But hey, man, I've had guide clients catch 6 pound 6+ up here on drop shots, on regular Neds, on I mean, lots of different stuff. But in here, I believe it gets me a bigger bite. So
So
that's what's going to be on the end of my string when I'm out there doing it.
Right.
Aaron's got a question here, and I'm assuming he's talking about brown ones, but breakout.
Absolutely. You could read the question, but yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if other people could see it. I was just
everybody can see it. Yeah, as long as they're literate, they can get the gist of it.
Yeah, if you're listening,
Brown
the
ones
question
and
was,
green ones, right?
Have you ever broke off a fish and had
both
this
of
bleed?
them?
Yep.
David, man, me and David Genevico were on a pretty shallow school on Kentucky Lake one day, and they were about 8 foot, man, and they were so thick. We were catching them on a 6XD. They were so thick, man. You could feel that crankbait coming over them, and it would hit 3 or 4 of them, and then it would just. And I catch like a 5.5, and then throw it in the box, and he catches like a 6 and throws it in the box. Then he catches a 3, and we're up there beside each other, man, just ground pounding them. And he catches that little 3-pounder, man, and we like look at each other, and he goes, pitches it back, because we both know, we're fixing to put 20, 25 to 28 in the box. Our next cast, when he let that fish go, we felt it hitting them, and none of them bit. And then our next cast, it was nothing but gravel. Them suckers vanished. I said, man, you just ran that school off. And he was like, yep. So I'm a big believer in that, dude.
That's how you learn. That's real time learning right there.
Don't want to hook one and it get off in the school. That's bad juju.
Yeah.
So,
and those suckers will follow you out. I had that happen yesterday. There was a group of schoolers that had just come up. They were busting shad and went back down. I was throwing a jerk bait, and I'm jerking that jerk bait, and here they come. I'm looking at them. They'd hit it and I'd miss. And then I'm jerking. They hit it, I'd miss. Next thing you know, there's literally probably 30 to 40 fish about 20 feet from my boat. And finally one locks up and I catch them. And they're all,
you pulled the whole school to you.
Yeah, I pulled them from about 80-foot cast to about a 15-foot cast. And they were just right under the boat. And they just kind of hung out there. And so they're bad about doing that too, man. You can pull them a long ways.
Yeah, man. There was something. This is getting off a topic, I guess, a little bit, but there was a thing I used to do on the Tennessee River back when ledge fishing was good, And most people always thought you would set deep and throw shallow, and I always tried to fish them. If they were laying in 15, I'd set my boat in 15, and as they came to me, I would just back up. And I mean, I hadn't proven this theory out, but it seemed to work. It seemed like when the problem is when you pull them from shallow to deep, they scatter. But if you could keep them in that zone that they were, whatever, feeding in or hanging out in, you can keep them going. And Randy Haynes and I used to talk about that. And Randy called me one time and he said, dude, I figured out exactly how to do it. He said, I led a school for almost a mile down the river. They hadn't catching them all there. But it was all about trying to keep them. We called it the happy zone, keeping them, in that depth that they were wanting to be in. And you could get a few more out of them. But
Was
That's
that
all.
pre forward facing sonar days?
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
That's pretty cool, man. I like that.
yeah. You'd usually see them with your eyes, like they follow each other up, or start seeing them on 2D. Randy used to run his side imaging and then throw back, where he would reel them past the back of his boat. He would have his side image and transducer turned on up front, which is why he used to run about 27 graphs up there, look like NASA in Randy's boat, and that big old tall sucker up there in his short shorts, which are back in style, by the way, Randy. I know you're not really fishing much anymore, buddy, but they're back. The little
Hey,
tiny
that's the way
shorts.
things are. You stick with something long enough, it'll come around back in style,
Yeah,
and you'll be a trendsetter.
I can't do it, man. I can't do it.
yeah, man. I've gotten over wearing them down to my calves, but I'm got to be around that kneecap. But
Yeah.
anyways, Randy would throw back past the boat, and when they would start following, his back transducer would pick them up, and he'd see them on his side up here, and then he knew to scooter on up a little bit, and that's how he kind of dialed it in, versus the way I was doing it, and that was just kind of seeing them on 2D, because sometimes then they're too close. But the main thing was not changing their depth. You didn't want to bring them out over deep water.
So you're saying if you're throwing that 6XD and 15, you wanted to bring it all the way through 15.
I set in 15 and through to 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
Parallel to the school, basically.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They were set.
Versus T-boning them
Yep.
and throwing across them.
Yep.
Like everybody else has done.
Yeah.
So Randy was throwing out the back end of the boat.
Yeah, he would face his boat, into the current, but he would throw. He was basically, throwing, keeping it where where when they started chasing, they would have to swim by his side image transducer.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having his engine behind him, he would have it in front of him and then throw that way.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But that's old news, man. Ledge fishing don't even really exist anymore, hardly, man. But
I miss it.
Yeah, it was fun, man. Back in the day.
Hey, I got to make a couple announcements real quick, and we'll ask a few more questions and wrap this up. First of all, wanted to let you guys know about the Warrior William tournament. It's the Fishing for Warriors at Lake of the Ozarks. It's coming up October 14th. So October 14th is the tournament day. That's a Saturday. And then October 13th, they have a dinner. And Dion Hibden's going to be the guest speaker there. That's at Red Oak, Lake of the Ozarks. It's for a great cause. If you're curious about looking for a tournament in October on Lake of the Ozarks, check that one out. It's a really fun time. I'm going to try to make it. I have been meaning to get down there the last couple of years, and I haven't made it. But it's from everybody that's fished it has said it's a really, really good time. Just a lot of camaraderie, and it's for a good cause. And also wanted to let you guys know that Baitworks is got a 25% sale on Strike King 1.5 and 2.5s. It's running for a couple more days. So if you guys are looking to stock up for some crankbaits this fall, 25% off is hard to beat for a Strike King. That's a proven bait. A 1.5 is a proven bait. It's one of the best square bills out there. So
Runs through Sunday.
Yep. So get on there, check them out. I don't know what they have left, but I'm sure they got something that will tickle your fanny.
And if they don't,
there's other stuff on there.
Well, that and you can get one custom painted. So
yeah, exactly.
Get it cheap and get it custom painted. We know a guy.
Send it to Mike Russell, Bag 5 Baits. He does a pretty good job painting baits.
Mike's a good painter, man.
He is a good painter.
Maybe the best.
He's right. He's definitely does some really spectacular work. You mentioned Kentucky Lake when we were talking a little bit about it. You got to fish the Toyota Series on Kentucky Lake this year, is that right?
I did, man. That wasn't by design. That was requested from some of my backing. So,
well, what did you think about the lake? You'd been off of it for quite a while. It's starting to kind of come back. What were your thoughts on the lake?
Man, I was pleasantly surprised, man, and I don't know if it was because of my expectations being so low. Like, I was expecting to go a couple days without a bite. I caught lots of fish, man. Lots of fish. And it's a total different lake than what I left. So I had to fish. I tried to make myself treat it like I'd never been there. first day I got there, man, I got up there late, and about 3 o'clock one afternoon. Put in New Johnsonville, man, and I had probably 17 pounds up there.
Really?
But a lot of them I caught off bed.
Hmm.
And this was like the Friday before the tournament, because I was contemplating jumping in that BFL on Saturday just for fun. And then I was like, man, that's a long run, dude, and I'm not a great bed fisherman, but I felt like 17 would probably do decent in it if I could
Yeah.
catch that again. So I was like, nah, man, to heck with it. I'm just going to practice. And I caught more smallmouth that week than I caught the 8 years I got it there put together. But the frustrating thing about that, and this, I'm always, fisherman always has an excuse, but that deal that ended up dominating that tournament, I learned that on Pickwick last year. John Canada, I think his name is, won the tour or pro circuit, whatever it's called, down at Pickwick last year, scoping shallower stumps. And I was down there guiding, and I was like, man, I need to, play around with that deal. And I said, I bet that's something that would work on Kentucky. So I thought, man, there's no better stump field on Kentucky Lake than the mouth of Big Sandy. So I spent like 3 hours out there scoping stumps in like 4 to 6 foot of water. Never got a bite, never saw a fish, never saw a follower. I was like, I guess it's not working. And
Hmm.
long story short, the old guide kicked in, and my co-angler was leading after day one, and I had a limit for like 12 something and wasn't in bad shape, like 20 something place. And then day two, I lost a couple big ones and didn't make it. But when I found out how them boys were catching them, man, I was like, dude, I can't leave here without like seeing a fish eat my bait off a stump. Like how did I miss that? I tried it. So I went up in the Blood River area, man, where I knew a bunch of stumps were, and it was probably the best day of smallmouth fishing I ever had on the lake.
Really?
I didn't have any monsters, man. I had maybe 16 or 17 pounds, but I caught a lot of them. And that would have been a strong weight in that tournament, but a
Yeah.
lot of them were post spawn, so they were skinny. But uh, it's interesting, man. But I felt good about it. I wouldn't mind going back. I kind of figured after I left there, I'd be like, man, I'm glad I left that place. But I like them smallies, man. I'm starting to fall in love with them dudes. So it'd be nice to learn how to catch them down south because I never was too good at it down there.
Yeah, and it's cool to go back out and learn how to do something. Actually put it in motion, catch some fish. Not saying that you didn't already kind of know how to do that, but you tried it and it wasn't working. But to go
Right.
back out, stay an extra day, go back out
Yeah.
and reproduce it and get
Yeah,
some confidence in
it
it.
made me feel pretty good, man. And then I told a buddy of mine up there where those fish were, and he ended up he was kind of we were kind of doing the same thing in the tournament, but neither one of us really knew. We didn't know what was happening out there, like why they were out there. So I told him what I found that next day and what I thought was happening. I mean, I felt like they were spawning on him out there. And then he started looking more at kind of the area he had been fishing, and he was like, "Man, I think you're right." And uh, it ended up lasting for a couple more weeks, man. I thought it was going to be kind of a real short lived deal, but he won several tournaments up there, man. Like team tournaments after that. Well, Jordan Hartman is who it is.
Oh, yeah, he was. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
But I'm not trying. I'm not trying to say like I taught Jordan how to do it. It was just kind of like we saw each other and we're kind of like, "What are you doing over there?" And he's like, "I don't know. There's just a bunch of smallmouth over here." And then,
Yeah. I mean, what I meant by that was I saw he was really on fire there
yeah,
for
he got
quite a
on.
while. I knew he figured something out, but that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, he really expanded on it and dialed it in and then shared it with me. So hopefully, if I run into that situation again, that I'll be able to take some of what he shared and understand it even more. But it was a neat deal, man. And I weighed in. I lost a big smallmouth the second day of that tournament, like possibly I don't know, 4.5 or 5 pounder, and I caught a 4.5. So And I had a big largemouth get off. So, I put them in there because I only weighed in 3, I think. And yeah, I think I would have been in the top 10. And that would have been cool, to come back and make it. I really wanted to. But it is absolutely a different lake. Um, I like that comment.
Yeah, but the 10-pound largemouth of Florida.
No comparison, buddy. Brown all day, baby. I'll take a 7-pound smallie over a 14-pound largemouth.
What about a 4-pound smallie
Over a what?
over a 10?
Nah, I'll take a 10.
No.
Caught a bunch of 4s, man. I ain't caught many 7s. In fact, I can count them on one finger.
And that happened pretty recently too. That's a big smallmouth. Hey, you got to check out this. Have you heard of the Python Cowboy? He's got a YouTube channel.
Is that what you sent me the other day?
Yeah.
Oh,
You got to check it out.
Is he got something to do with pythons?
Yeah, like snakes down in Florida.
Oh, is he down there hunting them?
Yeah. I'll send you. He's in the Everglades.
Yeah.
I'll send you a link. I'll send you a link to it.
I think I've heard about it.
It's pretty cool.
I'm a big
17 footer.
I'm a big snake dude.
I know, man. That's
that.
right up your alley. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
And as bad as I know, man, like that's bad, dude. We don't need pythons in Florida. But I still don't think I could kill them, man. Like, it's kind of like fish, man. I will eat them, but I don't want to be the one to kill them.
Yeah.
Even if they're invasive.
I
might put a goby on a drop shot every once in a while and send him to his demise. But
yeah. Yeah.
Does it? I don't think that works, does it?
Oh yeah. They don't last long.
It's better than night crawlers. Yeah, I think that that Python Cowboy is right up your alley. I could see you getting in on some of that.
I'd absolutely go down there and help him wrangle them, but I know.
Would you get in the water to do it?
Ugh. I'd be more likely to get in the water chasing a snake than I would just for fun. I mean, I don't want to get in too deep. I like to be able to see my toes.
So what's your snake of choice then?
My favorite snake in the world, probably a Bushmaster.
What's that?
They're like Central and South American, man. They're the biggest pit viper in the world.
Oh.
I took care of a 9-footer at the Nashville Zoo, man, a black-headed Bushmaster.
Dang.
So their Latin name is Lachesis muta. That's their genus species.
Yeah.
And that translates to silent fate. How sick is that?
I don't know. The Gaboon Viper is pretty vicious looking.
Oh, I got a great Gaboon story from my zoo days, man. That's the closest I ever came to getting bitten. Was from about a 6-foot Gaboon with a head about that big. But it wasn't his fault; it was my fault. But
I didn't know you worked at a zoo.
You're gonna have to elaborate on this because I don't know this one.
Yeah, my first career, man, I was the reptile keeper at the Nashville Zoo. So
there's where your
like
snake
Ace Ventura
love of snakes comes in.
Ace Ventura,
yeah, pet detective.
Yeah. No, I'm not like I don't like it. I'm just scales. They don't like anything with legs and fur, man. I like fish and snakes, dude. I've always been fascinated by them, and I've been blessed to make a living playing with both of them. So,
have you been bitten?
Not by anything venomous, but by other stuff, but thousands of times.
What was the worst?
Oh, I got an awesome dude. Everybody's gonna be like logging off. Like, man, it's supposed to be a fishing show. So when I worked at the National Zoo, man, we had this big exhibit. It's like 10 by 10. Like you walk in it like a room, and we had 8 just common like boa constrictors in there. No, Stephanie, wrong. You need to go to the Tennessee Snake Identification page, and we will educate you while we need them.
Mm-hmm.
Need them. So we have like 8 boa constrictors in this exhibit. They're harmless, man. I mean, they're like puppy dogs usually. And
puppy dogs, cute and cuddly, right?
Yeah. And they're like 8 to 10 footers, all of them, man. So one of them has a respiratory infection, and the vet has to come in every day and give it an injection. So I have to go in with the vet, get the snake that's sick, let the vet give it a shot. Well, the snake was going in its shed cycle, and they get really like sensitive, and they can't see real good, so they get a little nippy. So I'm holding the snake, like this, and the vet's doing its thing, and I look down, and it was like slow motion, man. The snake's head's about the size of my hand, and I see its mouth open real slow, and it just turned, and it's like, it
Mm.
just bit my wrist, man, and like let go. And their teeth are super sharp. It's like getting a shot, man. You can't. It's not really that painful. It's more like pressure. But I bled like a stuck hog, and there's an entire like kindergarten class standing outside the exhibit, and they all just start screaming, man, and blood just starts spewing. It took us like 2 days, man, to clean all the blood off, like all the logs and plants and stuff. It was
It's
freaking.
squirting all over the window.
Oh, it was awesome.
Oh, that is great.
So I've always wanted to like locate some of these little kids and see how traumatized they were.
Yeah, you scarred them for life, man.
Yeah. But after a couple of days, it got really sore. Like when you get a tetanus shot, you don't really feel it, and then your whole arm will get sore. That's how it was. It's no big deal to get bit by a snake, man.
Unless it's got venom in it.
Yeah, man, and so I think that's kind of overrated sometimes. Did you know that? Did you know that more people die from deer attacks than snake bites?
Deer
Really?
attacks?
Interesting.
There's been 7 deaths in like 40 years from snake bite in the U.S.
Really?
Super rare, man. Super rare.
Huh.
They get a
It's,
really.
it's
bad
still not fun though. Like I wouldn't want to get bit by a venomous snake.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to go pick up a copperhead and play with it, man. I mean, I
Lord,
probably
Sally.
would because I'm an idiot, but I definitely don't downplay that. Like you avoid them, but they aren't out to kill you. Uh, like I've chased cottonmouths in creeks, man, so long, and that their very first, option is to try to run. They use their venom to eat, man. They don't want to waste it on you. In fact, like 40% of bites are dry where they don't inject venom. But
I've had one cottonmouth encounter that it was negative, and he was on a beeline at me. So
eh,
he was
I
on
mean,
a beeline at the boat, and he was hell bent to get in the boat.
yeah, I'm not saying I don't believe you, but a lot of times they look at it as like a kind of a, just like a pile of drift or something,
Yeah, it's
man.
a log to them, right? I mean, they
Yeah,
don't
they're
know
just
that it's a
trying to get
boat.
up on it. They're not attacking, but
No, but I wasn't comfortable with a cottonmouth coming in the boat.
understand. I get it. I get it.
I'm good on that piece. Now, like, see, yours is the Bushmaster largest pit viper
Yeah.
in the world. Mine's a green tree snake.
That's your favorite
That's
snake?
my favorite snake.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Because
At least you have a favorite snake, man.
oh, absolutely. I had a pet snake growing up, like
Oh, there you go, bro.
for a couple of days. Like, I'm not like I don't like, especially with having 2 kids, and
Yeah.
and they're around the house because we live out in the country.
Yeah.
I live on a 7-acre pond, so I have cottonmouths. I have everything's there.
Yeah.
Uh, I know there's copperheads there. Fortunately, I have not seen a rattlesnake, but my kids are around all the time, so
Yeah.
I have to caution them. Hey, don't just go pick up one because you don't know what it is. Like,
Yeah.
we got a milk snake that lives in our, yeah,
That's
in
one of my
our.
favorite. That's like probably my favorite snake, like in our region.
Oh, really?
That and northern pine snake.
Yeah, he lives under our walkway, and you'll see him sunning in the spring, early spring, and he did scare the pea water out of me one day. I was walking across the yard in flip flops. Grass was a little high, and I was not focused on snake. I was focused on whatever task that I was doing. And he got on the toe of my flip flop, and I flipped him up, and he hit me in like the knee area, and I was not expecting a snake to come flying at my head. So fortunately, the surveillance outside of the cameras outside did not pick up me hollering, screaming, not knowing what the hell was after me.
That's like in when we moved into the house that we're trying to sell now. There was a big bushy. I've told the story. There was a big bushy bush up the side of the house, and I was down there trimming it up, and I'm grabbing some stalks, and I'm trimming, I'm grabbing, and I make a grab, and the limb starts doing this. It was a green snake.
It's not a limb.
It's a snake. It was a green snake, and I grabbed it just like I was getting ready to trim it. That was one of those deals where you jump back, you go, and you throw the snake across the yard.
So did you? You didn't trim it, did you?
No,
you
I didn't
go ahead and trim his head off, did you?
No, he freaked out. I mean, he started squirming, and I freaked out before any sharp utensils had contributed to his demise. But I definitely jumped back, and it's like stepping on a snake. If you're walking, you step on a snake.
You
don't know it's there. You feel it, something going on.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, you can't help it. You're gonna jump back.
Man, there was I'm not trying to turn this into a 2-hour snake show, even though that I'd be into it if y'all wanted to do it.
So hold on, before you say that, we were talking about this earlier today about getting somebody on that's not fishing related. And maybe that's the conversation.
Making a deep dive into snakes or beehives.
Yeah, and I'd be okay with that.
Ant farms.
Dude, it's I mean, my buddies, it freaks them out. Like you can name a snake, a native snake, and I can like spit out the genus species of pretty much everything in the eastern half of the U.S. I mean, that was my deal, man. That was my career. So, but there was a story, man. This was pretty recent. This lady had posted, and it's her daughter. She's like 13, and she's sitting there holding a copperhead, like just laying in her hands with it, like up at her face, smiling.
Huh.
Like not holding it behind the head, which is not smart to do, people. Don't do that. Only us professionals can do that. But the next picture, you scroll over and it's her in the hospital like this, man, with her arm laid out and all. But she thought it was a garter snake. So, I think it's awesome to teach your kids to respect them, and not be afraid. But at the same time, if you're going to pick them up, you need to 200% know.
Mm-hmm.
And how you get a garter snake mixed with a copperhead, I'll never know, man. It's just like spotted bass and largemouth to me. Like, how can you not tell?
That's like largemouth and smallmouth. That's not.
Yeah, that's not large. Yeah.
That's not largy and spotty. That's.
Yeah, that's night and day.
I
got a question for you, hypothetical for you, Brent. Would you rather be in a bathtub with 5 rattlesnakes or be face to face with a Sasquatch right out in the woods?
I would absolutely probably go with the rattlesnakes, man.
The rattlesnakes?
Yeah, I'm not a big Sasquatch Yeti guy.
Yeah. Well, there's not a lot of like solid behavioral data on them, so you don't really know what they're going to do when you come face to face. So a rattlesnake, I mean, you kind of got some of an idea what's going to happen.
People don't believe it, but when you're around an animal or whatever long enough, and you can kind of read their reactions and stuff. And yeah, I'm not scared. I'm cool with rattlesnakes, man. I'd hop in a tub with some.
Yeah,
I've been I went under a pallet one time at the zoo, man. They were clearing off some land. They were having they called it Boo at the zoo for Halloween.
Nice.
There was a big old stack of pallets, and the maintenance dudes like lifted them up with like a skid loader, and there were 6 copperheads under there. So it's like radio comes on reptile department. You're needed at such and such. I'm like,
and this was readily available for access for the patrons.
It was gonna be.
Yeah, that's convenient, isn't it?
Once I cleared out all the copperheads. So I head down there. I was already out getting lunch, man. So I got like a cardboard box from the concession stand, and I found like a piece of like an old tomato steak and broke it in half. And the maintenance guys lift up these pallets, and I go under there, and I came out with 5 copperheads, and till this day I don't know where the 6th one is, but I got 5 of the 6.
Pretty good odds. You talked about that,
yes, they're still alive, people. But I don't.
Are they at the zoo?
Huh?
Are they at the zoo?
No, I just took them. actually took them down and released them down at the creek. And then the people that took care of the elephants were talking the next week about how they went down to the creek after work and almost stepped on a copperhead. I was like, oops.
Yeah. Hey, as long as you save the snakes, who cares about the elephants?
Yeah. Congratulations.
No, I'm
Congratulations to
terrified of elephants. They'll mess you up.
elephants.
Especially if you're
Yeah.
a mouse.
You know what my biggest fear is? Are praying mantises, man.
They are weird. That's a weird
They
bug. They look into your soul and then they jump and try to suck your brains out. Have you ever seen? I got attacked by one.
I saw one kill a bird. Like a
They're
video of
crazy.
one killing a bird.
I was in a parking lot delivering mail. This is years ago, but I was out in this big town plaza parking lot, and I grabbed all my mail and I opened my door to my little mail truck, and I'm getting ready to step out, and there's a praying mantis right there, staring
See,
me
I
down.
love praying mantises.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. You got it. And that sucker, that thing jumps and flies and lands right on my chest,
Uh-huh.
and it's doing this.
How did that go again? How did that go again? What was it?
You got it down, man.
One more
That's the
fun,
best praying
one,
mantis impression on our live stream yet.
one more good story, man. So these two girls that worked in the reptile department with me, they didn't know that I was terrified of praying mantises. And we had a green mamba that I took care of that was in a big old walk-in exhibit. And it was full of all these green live plants, all pretty. Well, they catch one of those praying mantises about a freaking foot long. And they thought it would just be a cool, addition to turn him loose in the freaking mamba exhibit. And I said, until that praying mantis is found, y'all can go in and play with the 9-foot green mamba. I'm not going in there.
Now I know the black mamba is one of the most deadliest snakes in the world.
It is.
It is the most deadliest, right?
It's one of the. It's
Like
top
that,
one, right?
and then the brown snake in Australia.
Yep, and the taipan, and the inland taipan, the brown snake, the black mamba, and then I don't know.
Where does the green mamba rank in that?
So there's two green mambas. There's an eastern and a West African and an East African, and the East African's bad. We had a West African, and supposedly, all the venom's potent, but the eastern green is a lot more chill than a black. That is one snake that will come at you.
The black mamba will.
Yeah, and the West African, the one that I had to mess with, had the attitude of a black. Where
Oh,
I feel like the brown snake got shorted on creativity.
Yeah.
on its name.
Yeah.
We'll just call it a brown snake.
yeah, but if you're gonna have
I
a
guess there's a
snake,
black snake too.
but if you're gonna have a snake that's highly venomous, make it a brown snake. That way, it's not as scared by everybody.
well, see, that's my buddies always think I'm trying to show off spitting out the Latin names of stuff, but there's so many common names. Like we have a brown snake. You guys have a Decay's brown snake. So if somebody says I saw a brown snake, it could mean so many things. And the black snake.
The rat.
People call a black king snake a black snake. They call a gray rat snake a black snake, a black rat snake a black snake, or a black racer a black snake. So that's why when you're trying to educate or truly identify, you always put the Latin in case they want to Google, what they actually saw and read about it or anything. So
The worst one that I hate, a damn water moccasin. There's no such thing as a water moccasin.
well,
That's
it's like another regional common name for a cottonmouth, right?
Well, but it's cottonmouth or water moccasin is also confused by a northern water snake.
Exactly. Yeah, my granddad called northern water snakes water moccasins.
Yep.
But
and those can be
if you
pretty.
say it's an
fairly aggressive too.
Piscivorus, then I'm talking about a cottonmouth. And if I say it's
what you're talking about when you say
Nerodia cipodon, then I'm talking about a northern water snake.
Right.
Exactly.
If you hit the Googler, if you check out the Googler and put that in, then you'll get the right info.
So what's the brown snake?
I don't know that one, man. I don't know. The brown snake that we have, that you guys have and Tennessee has, is a Steraria decayi.
That one's not in our snake directory. in Missouri. That's brown snake.
Was
What
it
would it
just
be?
was it just the K snake?
Probably, yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
not familiar with that one.
I think that one's either in western or northern Missouri. It's not in southeast Missouri with us.
You guys have some pretty cool snake. You have pygmy rattlers over there.
Not over here.
We have timblers.
They're
Timber
on the other
rattlers.
side of this.
The
They're in
other
the
side.
southwestern part of the state. Like I said, I'm a snake guy. I like snakes.
Yeah.
Too,
You
but
know,
I'm
there's
not like to your point where I'm going to play with them. I just
Yeah.
like to know what they are, the different color phases of them, so I can educate my kids and educate other people. Because, like, yeah, it might be a snake that lives in the water, but it's probably not a cottonmouth.
Most of the time, it's not, man.
It's just a northern water snake.
Yeah.
And they can be aggressive too. Don't get me wrong; they're not very, very calm animals. So.
Yeah, they're. Oh yeah, I've gotten attacked by a bunch of them. I mean, not attacked, but once you pick them up and they attack, I think they have a right to attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I got to go grab them if I see them just to get some pics and say hello.
So, what's the biggest rattlesnake you've encountered in the area?
In the wild?
Yeah.
Not probably like 4.5 footer, man.
Okay.
Just a timber. We had like a 6.5 foot eastern diamondback at the zoo but man, we had so many procedures at the zoo, I mean, you rarely ever came into contact. If you actually had to work, give them injections, or believe it or not, snakes get impacted a lot and you have to give them enemas and things. But you had like these plexiglass tubes and you got one just a little bigger than the snake and he runs in and they get so far and they can't go any further. And then you kind of grab the tube and the snake and they can't back out. And then you can do what you got to do.
You got to still be careful with that because they can slip back out if that tube is just a little too big.
Oh yeah, it's got to be the right size.
Yeah.
Like one of my buddies, man, in Eastern Kentucky, he does a venom extraction, and I mean he handles hundreds a week, but he's been bitten like 14 times, man. And he said, man, he said I've had them bite through their bottom lip, all the way through their bottom lip to get me. He said I've had them flip over their head over, basically like this, and bite me.
Oh.
So that's what you're saying. Grabbing behind the head is not always the safest place.
Yeah, man, because they can like slip a fang down past their. And I've done it a bunch, man. But back when I was young and a raging drunk, and like taking rattlesnakes in Waffle Houses and stuff. That's a good story for one night. But,
hey, ain't nothing better to 3 a.m. in the morning and some guy walks in with a rattlesnake.
my favorite part of that is like 7 or 8 years later, I'd already kind of moved on from the snakes and started chasing fish. And I'm in a Waffle House like 25 miles from where this went down, like 10 years earlier. And I walk in the middle of the day, man, and I hear somebody go, "Snake Man!" And it was Cook that was in there that night. He said, "That crazy SOB brought a live rattlesnake into Waffle House and dumped it out."
You're a legend.
You dumped it out?
Well, they didn't believe me. And the waitress started talking about a ball python, and I looked up at my buddy and I was like, she likes snakes. And I called her over there and I said, "Hey, if I bring a live rattlesnake in here, will you give us free food for life?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "I'll be right back."
Did you have one in the truck or what?
Yeah, I had it in a pillowcase and a bucket.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
He always great.
See, I guess
it wouldn't fit in his wallet.
A lot of my snake stuff is from my grandfather, who was a taxidermist. And when you're a taxidermist, people like to bring you stuff.
Yeah.
And some of that stuff may or may not be dead when they bring it to you. So the one story was a rattlesnake, and they thought it was dead, and it wasn't dead. And they threw it in the freezer, and it went into hibernation, and they got it out the next morning. And
holy cow!
They lined it up on the table, and he said, Dad said that tote sack came moving out, and that head just as slow as you could imagine, and
came back from the dead.
Grandma never allowed rattlesnakes to get in the house again.
I mean a lot of people will probably think that's a bunch of bullcrap, but I know a lady I worked with got fired. We had the frill dragons, the ones from Australia that throw the thing out and run on their back legs.
Yeah.
And we had one that was really sick in poor shape. and it's actually a very humane way to euthanize a reptile is to put them in a freezer, because they do just that. They go into hibernation and then they freeze. So she put it in our anti-venom. We have all our anti-venom in a, it has to be kept at like 38ish, like not freezing but cold. And she thought since this lizard was from Australia, that would be enough to put it out. So it put that sucker to sleep. And then we sent it to the lab to have a necropsy done on it. And when they put the scalpel in its belly, it jumped off the table.
Well, so the freezer was just overnight, so it wasn't a long time in the freezer.
Right. Yeah, it would eventually do it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
It was just so like they brought what was supposed to be a dead snake and threw it in the freezer just so it wouldn't stink throughout the night.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Well, that's why it's best just to leave them alive.
Yeah, just let them go.
And leave them alone. I mean, I don't endorse people going out and playing with snakes because it is risky. And I tell my parents, my mom will see these videos I post of me playing around with coral snakes and stuff. And she's like, "You're gonna get it one day." And I said, "If I do, don't be mad at. It's not the snake's fault. I guarantee you, it was self-induced. If I die from alligator attack or snake bite, it didn't come at me. I went at it." So,
right. Stephanie's not giving up. She's still kill them all.
We need to get the moderators in here to block Stephanie. I thought me and her were going to be friends, but I ain't.
Can't be killing snakes.
Well, I mean, like you said, and most, whether it's a dog, whether it's a cat. I mean, I've been attacked by a cat multiple times, but it's more than likely it's my fault because I've already pissed the cat off.
I don't know, man. Cats are unpredictable.
I'm not a big cat guy. They're snake food.
My brother has a
They're
cat.
They're snake food. Is that what you said?
My brother's got a cat. If you walk by, it hides underneath the couch.
Just comes out and attacks you.
And just for no reason at all. They're just on you like that.
Cats are the spawn of the devil. I don't trust them.
They're definitely have their own personality. Let's wrap this up, man. It is.
We went sideways. Real sideways.
No, this is good, man. I live for this kind of stuff. I live for the random rabbit holes that we go down on these live streams.
If you're up in the Northeast, how do they get a hold of you to go out on a trip?
Man, I don't have too many left
next year.
I don't have too many left next year, but just hit my social medias up at Brent Anderson Fishing and shoot me a message. And I do have a good group of dudes working with me now. My boy Clay Reese is up here. He's doing stellar trips. Everybody loves him. Blake Hall's up here with us right now. Nick Hatfield just left. He did a few trips for us. I'm sure most bass fishing fans know Nick. He's he's a stud. But he had never guided before, and I talked to the group today, and I said, how'd you like Nick? He's a hammer, but he's not a guide. And I said he's just kind of filling in for us. And the guy said, "Man, we've been with hundreds of guides for hundreds of species, and he's as good as anybody we ever had." So we're not gonna. If I can't take you, we're not gonna send you out with some riffraff, man. It's gonna be a good trip, guaranteed to catch them. Yeah. We don't fish, we catch.com. Fins and grins, baby.
Fins and grins, baby. Hey, another thing real quick. Somebody that's been with you for a while is Ashmore Marine Products.
Yes.
And I was just looking at their website before we jumped on here. They got some really cool stuff. They got some unique products that, aren't offered by just everybody. So if you, everybody's on here, if you want to go look at some, just kind of some niche things, like my buddy Ron, he's got the Lowrance trolling motor, and the arrow on that thing, it's all over the place. When you're trying to, he's got active target, and you're trying to find the fish, the arrow. It's so he made some little deal out of a coat hanger that kind of works. But I was looking at AMP Outdoors or
AshmoreMarineProducts.com.
Right, gotcha. And they got something made for that trolling motor.
Yeah, the little pointer deal.
Which is kind of nice. I actually sent the link to Ron while ago.
Those guys are making parts for you and I that figure out that there's something wrong, but we just don't know what to do. Somebody took that to them and they came up with it. Like,
Yeah.
it's fishermen creating solutions.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got some pretty cool stuff on there.
Yeah. Have you seen the little mats that I got him to come out with for
I did. I was looking at those too.
instead of using the pool noodles?
Yeah.
That's kind of the generation one. We're looking at a material that's a little more flexible. But for now, it's just another option. I mean, that is one thing I've learned up here, man. I want to tell everybody, please, if you come up here, these are some the most fragile fish. You have to learn how to fizz through the side. The throat's no good. And you have to use some kind of padding because it's rough out here, even in the river. So if you got to use pool noodles or cut a life jacket up or check out the BA bass mat for a Ashmore, it makes a huge difference, man. But the thing I like about ours, it's one piece and you cut it to fit the inside of your live well, and you don't have to take it out. It just folds under so you can get a fish out to cull or whatever, and it floats back up and the others can't jump out. So kind of has multiple uses, but I'm just really trying to preach right now. This place is changing every year that I've been coming for 3 years, and it's getting tougher. Fish are getting harder to find, and it's giving me bad Kentucky Lake vibes, but not near. I mean, there's still millions of fish out here, but it just needs to be respected, man, and taken care of because it's a very special place.
And that stuff can happen in a blink of an eye.
Yes,
So
it can.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been telling everybody the last couple of weeks, I said there's 1 million smallmouth in this river that'll never see a lure, and there's another 1 million that'll see a lure and never bite it. But those ones that were willing to bite and were easy to find are becoming more and more rare. And maybe that'll be a good thing. Maybe it will get a little tougher and it'll get a little break from the pressure it's been getting. But I've seen the local fishing pressure up here, and I don't blame these guys. I mean, hey, we shouldn't be us dang hillbillies shouldn't be the ones coming up here enjoy it, but it's quadrupled since I came up here 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
A good thing doesn't stay quiet for long. I don't care what it is,
just and please don't do the hero shots up here, man, where you haul around 8 or 10 of them big suckers in your live well all day for a pick. It's just not worth it. 1 6-pounder looks just as cool as 5 4 or 5 pounders, man.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's just I never have
you can
done that.
You can make a big collage and it look really cool.
Yeah. So,
yes.
All right, man. We'll let you go. Congratulations again.
Hey, thank you so much, man. Thanks for having me. Sorry to ramble on for 7 hours, but that's what I do.
It was perfect. It was perfect. And
we appreciate it.
We'll get you back on here sometime in the near future and catch up with us.
Hopefully we'll be talking about another W pretty soon.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. So everybody, thanks for hanging out with us. We do this every Tuesday. So the new faces on here, we'd love to see you back next Tuesday. I'll let you know who's going to be the guests in a week. So good evening.
Take care of your fish and don't kill snakes.
There you go.
I'm out.
Yeah, Stephanie.
We'll see you guys
later.